of assault called simple assault, or voie de fait simple in French, you do not need to prove intent, to the best of my knowledge. You only need to prove that the person was actually physically assaulted. So Margot Ellis could have been charged, tried, and convicted of simple assault if the detective had done that, but of course she didn't. So very, very disappointed with Detective Kim at Station 11, I think her name was Kim, if I remember correctly. Something like that. Kimberly, I'm pretty sure it was Kimberly. So anyhow, yeah, not very happy with basically either lazy or incompetent or corrupt SPVM detective who refuses to bring assault charges against a woman who clearly and unequivocally assaulted me. So that's unfortunate, but that's my take on things, and it's supported by evidence. Anyhow, I'll just continue to circulate here. But yeah, getting back to Sue Montgomery, who is now deputy mayor of the whole island of Montreal, because Valerie Plante thought it'd be a really good idea to appoint a Unitarian Universalist clergy abuse enabler as deputy mayor of Montreal. She is, right at this very moment, accusing me of libeling her for telling the verifiable truth about her complicity in Unitarian Universalist clergy abuse cover-up and her direct involvement in what I consider to be a misuse and abuse of SPVM police power and the criminal justice system in an effort to obtain a restraining order against me to shut down my protest in front of the church. In the minds of the Unitarians, it was a permanent shutdown. They believed that this shutdown would extend forever. But as it turned out, they were able to get the restraining order because I got one of the worst judges in Quebec presiding over the hearings, and she prevented me from properly cross-examining Reverend Diane Rowland about the lies she told, or the misleading half-truths she told, and basically prevented me from thoroughly going over all the evidence and showing the flaws in the depositions and everything. You know, the half-truths and lies and paranoid fantasies and so on and so forth. So they got the one-year restraining order. I tried to appeal it, but unfortunately when the ruling came down, it was midsummer, and most of the lawyers were on vacation. I had difficulty finding a lawyer. I might have been able to find a public defender type lawyer, but I just said, what the hell, I'll take a holiday. You know, I already said, even when they gave the order, I said thanks for the holiday. So I was already thinking, you know, that I should just take a year off and enjoy the break and come back reinvigorated a year later and see what came after that. So in the end, that's what I did. I took a one-year holiday from protesting against Unitarian Universalist clergy abuse, and came back a year later. And of course, then there was, you know, more police intimidation and harassment, you know, trying to shut me down, try to pretend that the restraining order was permanent or could be renewed. And I said, yeah, fine, if you want to go renew it, you know, go do what's necessary to try and renew it, and I'll contest it, you know. So in the end, they were unable to extend the restraining order beyond 1 year. So I had a nice one-year holiday, and here I am. Basically been protesting for the better part of a decade since they got that restraining order against me on the basis of paranoid fantasies and perjurious lies, which Sue Montgomery, the Gazette's justice reporter, was directly involved in. Sue Montgomery was one of the people who signed a deposition to the police, claiming to be very frightened of me and intimidated by me. Funny, because she's never behaved in a manner towards me in my presence that indicates to me that she's very frightened of me. You know, she's been very, very close to me, within a couple of feet of me, having a conversation, and, you know, never showed any fear with, you know, so I think she probably just lied. But even if she was frightened, it was personal insecurity and possibly a certain amount of paranoia, because I'd never said or done anything that was any kind of threat against her personal safety. I had just criticized her for refusing to report on the justice issues. You know, in 2006, 2007, Sue Montgomery was attending the Unitarian Church of Montreal, So when I saw Sue Montgomery coming towards the church, I would sometimes say, hey Sue, you know, when are you going to report on the justice issues here? You know, you're the justice reporter. That's basically all I did was say, hey, you know, Sue, you got a story here. You should be reporting it, you know. And she would always just refuse to do so. And then I think one day I told her she was full of shit. That's what she claims in the deposition anyway, you know, like she claims that I called her full of shit one day. And that's reasonable, I think. I mean, it's a bit rude, but it's, you know, full of shit means you don't practice what you preach. You say one thing, but you don't actually do it, or you do the exact opposite. You know, here was Sue, the Gazette's justice reporter, refusing to report on quite serious justice issues. And she's never at any time reported on any of the justice issues while she was the Gazette's justice reporter. But, you know, to put the icing on the cake, you know, when I told Sue Montgomery, actually, now that I think about it, it was almost exactly 5 years ago now. It was on December 6th of 2012. There was an action in front of the Palais de Justice. It was a vigil. It was a vigil for female victims of violence that comes on the anniversary of the shooting at the Polytechnic by Marc Lepine. So every year there's a vigil, and that year, 2012, December, there was a vigil in front of the Palais de Justice. And I was documenting it on video and some photos. And I saw Sue Montgomery. And, you know, since, you know, just, you know, so many months earlier, the Unitarian Universalist Association had thought it'd be a really good idea to falsely accuse me of the criminal act of blasphemous libel in clergy sex abuse cover-up and denial legal bullying, which sought to conceal such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape committed by certain Unitarian Universalist ministers. I said, hey Sue, I got a story for you. You know, one more time. It wasn't the first time I said I had a story for Sue, but this time I had a camera running. This time, you know, my camera was very much like it is now, hanging off my neck, you know, and running and recording what's happening. You know, so I tell Sue about the fact that the Unitarian Universalist Association hired a Stikeman Elliott barristers and solicitors litigation lawyer, Maitre Marc-André Coulombe, to, amongst other things, accuse me of committing the criminal act of blasphemous libel and legal bullying, which sought to intimidate me into removing blog posts to tell the readily verifiable truth about such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape committed by certain Unitarian Universalist ministers. And I said, you know, you should be reporting that as a justice reporter. In my view, you know, this is a clearly a newsworthy story. But of course she refused, and she has always refused to report that story. In fact, she's never reported any story about any of the injustices and abuses that I'm protesting in front of the Unitarian Church of Montreal for decades now. 2 decades coming up very soon. So that's it. That's my little story about Sue Montgomery's complicity in Unitarian Universalist clergy abuse, cover-up, and denial. And it's not ended, you know, until such a time as Sue Montgomery formally withdraws her false libel accusation against me. I will be accusing her of falsely accusing me of libel, because she's accusing me of libel right now, as far as I'm concerned. If you make an accusation, especially in a legal demand letter, and you refuse to withdraw it, well, as far as I'm concerned, you're standing by it, and so you are still accusing me. That's a little subtlety that Sue doesn't seem to understand. And the same can be said for Valerie Plante and Francois Limoges and Alex Norris and various other members of Projet Montreal. You know, they don't seem to understand that right at this very moment, the deputy mayor of Montreal is falsely accusing me of libel for telling the reality. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thumbs up are always appreciated. Just a second, I got headphones in. I can't hear you. Yeah, I like to think so, yeah. Thank you. Feel free to Google Unitarians and blasphemous libel. So this is nice. Yeah, I'm listening to CBC radio and didn't hear what the guy said, but he said, you're being courageous. Yeah, I think that's a reasonable word to describe my one-man protest in front of the Unitarian Church of Montreal. It's not the only one, but yeah, when you're one person standing up to a whole religious community, whether it's a single church or a whole religious community, yeah, it's reasonably courageous. So yeah, see, that's what I like to remind people is that in terms of the public perception of this protest, it's generally overwhelmingly positive and supportive. You know, most people drive by, walk by, cycle by. They don't say anything one way or the other, so you don't know exactly what they think. But in terms of the actual responses, they are usually of the nature of that gentleman there. You know, honk the horn, give me a thumbs up, and maybe say something like you're being courageous, or we think you're right, and this kind of thing, you know. So 8 or 9 out of 10 responses are like that one, and only 1 or 2 out of 10, and it's really closer to 1 than 2 of a negative nature. And the negative ones are usually by ignorant jerks, you know, who you know, basically don't even want to know what the truth is. So so anyhow, we shall continue to circulate here with our picket signs, and I think the video is probably more or less at an end here. Oh, just got a little bit of time left, about a minute or so left. Not even, actually. Well, yeah, maybe a minute. So we'll just let it run out, and then we'll start a fresh. So yeah, I got one of these dismissive smiles. You know. Oh, still running. Amazing. Okay, so we're gonna. I think we're just going to end the clip now and start a fresh one, so I have a fresh one going in case something happens. So that's it for now.